How much money is it going to take from the government at the end of the day to make this successful? To make your organization carry out what Canadians want? How much money?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a few of the committees that took place during the week, as well as the nonsense that happened yesterday in the House of Commons with the second reading of Bill C-8. Now, a lot of this stuff I covered in Monday's video, which unfortunately not a lot of people got to see because I did end up getting a block on the video. It's been unblocked now, so if you do want to check it out, I'll leave the card above or it in the description below. Has a lot of great information in it. But essentially, these are going to be a few updates to a lot of those things that I covered. So without further ado, let's dive into the news. Now, to give a quick summary of Monday's video, I covered a lot of the provisions that the Liberal government is trying to implement to control different aspects of your life. And I covered this right after the UK, which Mark Carney was just in, had announced mandatory digital IDs going forward. In Monday's video, I also covered that there was a petition that was started to not introduce digital IDs, and as of right now, close to 3 million signatures have been signed. Now, it does state that Parliament will consider this for debate once over 100,000 signatures, which clearly they have surpassed. However, the government has already responded by saying, we will introduce a digital ID within the Parliament to help tackle illegal migration, making accessing government services easier and enable wider efficiencies. We will consult on details soon. So clearly they are just going to steamroll this through. They don't really care, which to me doesn't seem very democratic. It should be going back into Parliament, debated, and then voted upon. But we're starting to see a lot more of this kind of behavior. And yesterday in the House of Commons, Bill C-8, which is the Telecommunications Act that the Liberals are trying to implement, had its second reading. The first reading was back in June. Yesterday was the second reading. But what I want to focus on, not only the bill itself, which is concerning, but the response that the Liberals gave the Conservatives who were bringing up a lot of the problems with this bill. Take a look at this.
Mr. Speaker, when I read this bill for the first time, my jaw hit the floor. As I had previously discussed in this House, my motivation for signing up to become a politician was the violation of basic charter rights that the Liberals perpetrated in the last Parliament. And even with that background in mind, I had hoped that they perhaps had been chastened and they would not try so hard to claim onto themselves powers explicitly forbidden by our Constitution in this Parliament. But I was wrong. And before I start talking about this bill today, let me just say, Mr. Speaker, it has been shocking to listen to Liberals claim to defend charter rights when they themselves violated Section 2 and Section 8 of our charter when they imposed the Emergencies Act, and that was determined by Justice Mosley of the Federal Court. All the Liberal members in the last Parliament voted to do that, and I do not want to hear any more about defending charter rights from any such member who has not apologized for that violation. Now on to the present bill. I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the Minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone. The bill gets worse, it does not get better, Mr. Speaker. 15.2 Clause 5 gives the Minister the ability to make her decision to kick someone off the internet. Secret. So imagine that. You've annoyed the Liberal Party overlords, and they've decided to kick you off the internet and cut your phone line. You can't tell anyone that you've been cut off. I have no idea how this could even possibly be enforced. But imagine being put effectively in a digital gulag, unable to use the phone or the internet or your online banking, and if you tell anyone that this happened, you could go to physical jail. I do not doubt that the Liberals will stand and say that I'm being somehow outlandish in my interpretation of this. I am not. It is there in black and white. Let me quote it for them. It seems like they haven't read it. 15.2 Clause 5. An order made under subsection 1 or 2 may include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence or some or all of its content by any person. And if you aren't inclined to believe me, please just Google it. Bill C-8, Canadian Constitution Foundation. There you will find their October 1st, 2025 publication where their expert lawyers corroborate my concerns. Mr. Speaker, once again, this bill will go to committee. Once again, Conservatives will be called upon to do the Liberals' homework and repair this deeply, deeply flawed bill. The offending provisions that I have described do not make us any safer, Mr. Speaker. The industry minister turning off a private Canadian citizen's cell phone does nothing to stop hackers in Russia, China, and Iran from wreaking havoc on our telecommunications infrastructure. They can't fix the problem because they don't understand the problem. They don't even understand where the problem is coming from. If the Liberals would merely live up to their apparently insincere reverence for our charter rights, we wouldn't even need to have this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So before we get to the response from the Liberal minister, I just wanted to play that little bit from Matt there to explain to you what Bill C-8 is going to entail, or some provisions of it. But now listen to the gaslighting and the delusional response from the Liberal minister and Matt's response, because Matt just clapped back perfectly. Take a listen to this.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's always interesting when you hear Conservatives make these extreme, outlandish claims. The member opposite tries to say, you have government, you know, the Liberal Party. We're going to take away your internet. We're going to take away your cell phones. We're going to deny you the opportunity to do your banking. And they come up with this whole conspiracy wearing well, not necessarily wearing a tin hat, but this conspiracy theory, how big government's going to take everything away when the legislation is all about protecting Canadians, protecting the economy. Does the member see any merit in having cybersecurity legislation that would ensure that the interests of Canadians is being served, such as our economy, economic transitions that take place every day by the thousands? Does he not see the merit for protecting that?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I wish this was a conspiracy. I wish the Liberals had the shame to keep this secret. It's open, it's in the bill. Multiple civil society groups have written letters to them asking them to change this, sounding the alarm. And when he says he thinks that I think it's a conspiracy that they might freeze bank accounts, they already did that, and the federal court told them that was a violation of charter rights, and they have no response to that. I'm asking them, apologize. If you're stand up, you have a lot to say. Now would be a terrific time to apologize for violating our charter rights in the last parliament. I'm serious. I don't know why you're laughing. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker.
It's just so gross that those Liberals continue to gaslight the way they do, as if the Canadians just have their head in the sand. It's not a conspiracy theory. They have blocked people's bank accounts. They do want to control what is said online or just in general. With all these bills that they keep implementing, I mean, earlier this week, we had Stephen Guilbeault talking about them re-looking at Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act bill, and reintroducing it into Parliament some other way. All the other bills they've done so far, Bill C-2, Bill C-5, Bill C-8, this one we just covered, Bill C-9, and then even Bill C-11, which was also in committee this week, which is the Online Streaming Act, the one where they get to control what the CRTC says what's Canadian content or not, and determines what you get to see online or on your TV. Like, all of these bills have some sort of creep of control, but this was Conservative Rachel Thomas and some other Conservatives grilling the CRTC on how this is actually going to help us, and they didn't really give us any good answers. Take a look.
As has been mentioned, streamers are required to pay 5% of their Canadian revenue over to the CRTC, which goes into a fund, or they can invest money directly into the production of Canadian content. Now, in order to do that, they would need to know what Canadian content is. Is there a redo on that definition? Do we have a new definition with regards to CanCon?
So when we made that decision, there was an existing definition. The hearing we had this May was specifically on whether there should be a new definition, and we had input, including from streamers, on various propositions we had on what a new definition might look like or whether we should keep the same one. I can tell you that there will be a decision forthcoming on that in the not too distant future, but unfortunately we have not issued a decision yet, so I cannot provide any more precision on what it will look like in the future.
Okay. How does Bill C-11 make the internet better?
So that's a big question. Again, I would come back to our role with respect to C-11, and that is the implementation of the legislation. We're a quasi-judicial tribunal, so we are implementing the legislation that was given to us by Parliament.
So I understand that. I think you and I could probably agree that the definition of success in terms of the implementation of Bill C-11 would be to serve the Canadian public to a greater extent. So how does Bill C-11 do that?
So we are here to work in the public interest. So again, coming back to our role, we are here to ensure that we are putting in place or implementing a regime that has been given us to us by Parliament, to make sure that we are including online streamers in the regulatory regime.
So again, the implementation of Bill C-11, the CRTC, I would imagine, is motivated by wanting to implement it in such a way that serves the intent of Parliament. And at the time, the minister said that it would make the internet better for Canadians. How are you implementing it in order to achieve that goal?
So again, and I would point to what my colleague, Mr. Shortlift, said. By implementing C-11, it does support the Canadian broadcasting system. It does offer choice to Canadians in terms of what they're able to watch, what they're able to consume. And obviously, there's an economic perspective to that as well in terms of supporting the broadcasting system.
I can appreciate what you just said. So you just outlined how it makes the broadcasting system better, but how does it make the internet better?
Well, Rachel, it doesn't make it better. And these guys don't even provide an answer because unfortunately the time ran out. But there's no way that the CRTC telling broadcasters or streamers how much Canadian content needs to be fed to Canadians or forced into us, it makes anything better. If people are interested in watching Canadian content, they will go look for it. Just last week, when Stephen Guilbeault was at the Canadian Heritage Committee, they asked him, well, what about the CBC? They have the CBC Gem, which is a free and a paid subscription service that shows Canadian content. They're not even telling us how much paid subscriptions there are because it's an embarrassment. Nobody really cares about it.
With the CBC, as you all know, the viewership is down, the revenue is down, in fact, the trust is down. And the former CEO, when we had Ms. Tate here, actually agreed with the trust in CBC is down. The streaming platform subscriptions, we don't know where they are, but now your leader has promised another $150 million to CBC. How is this possible?
I think looking at a global problem and saying that it's Radio-Canada or CBC's fault, well, I just don't agree with that. And I see that people across the country are saying, we want CBC here in our community. I've heard that across the country.
They hide the numbers of GEM. You know, there was an ATIP on CBC this summer asking just, how many subscriptions do you have to GEM? Oh, we can't tell you that because it wouldn't be fair to our competitors. Crave, which is owned by Bell Media, actually has 3.8 million subscribers in this country. And yet, for CBC GEM, we can't share it. There's free subscriptions, and then there's the paid, $5.99 a month, I think. So is that fair when you say, you know, the public broadcaster is hiding when they're asked? We'd like to know how much money is put into GEM. How many viewers? It might be, Minister, that GEM is useless and it should have been torched a long time ago. So when they're covering up, as a former broadcaster, when I see them, oh, we can't tell you, then I know there's red flags with the corporation. I know that for sure. And in Ontario, I'll just tell you, 0.35% of the streaming market in Ontario participated in CBC GEM. That's not even 1% of the province of Ontario. So that tells me little or no participation in this country on GEM, whether it's free or subscription-wise.
Thank you.
And it wasn't just in this committee that they talked about it. The former CBC employee, Travis Downraj, the whole, everything that's surrounding him, on his new podcast, he talked about the same thing. He brought it up as a joke because you have the numbers from Amazon and Crave and Netflix and all of these people. They provide the numbers. But apparently the CBC can't provide you with the 12 subscribers that they have that pay for CBC GEM.
The Canadian public owns the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
And should err on the side of transparency.
And should err on the side of transparency. I think that there should be transparency around a number of things that we're talking about today. And, you know, even like, okay, there's a story out about how they're going to court to protect the number of GEM subscribers they have, right? Like, what is it, 12?
Big secret. Big secret.
Why is that a big secret? The only reason I would think that they would want to keep that secret is because it's probably pretty embarrassing.
In all honesty, expecting transparency from the CBC is very wishful thinking. You can't even leave comments on their YouTube channels or their YouTube videos, for goodness sake. Like, the actions that these guys are taking, the numbers and the stats that we're hearing from them, proves that it's a failing system, but the government will continuously just fund them because it's an extension of them. You know, Carney will pump as much money into the CBC as possible, but then you hear about what's going on with Canada Post, which again I'm not going to get into right now, but you know, it's not viable. Well, neither is the CBC by your own standards. How much money they're losing, how much there's no retention there, yet you guys keep funding them through taxpayer money. They seem to be viable, but the Crown Corporation, Canada Post, because a few years now they've been losing money, they're no longer viable. When the CBC's been even first. Again, I'm not going to get into this, but this is something that the Conservatives grilled them on again, because if you didn't know, once they implemented Bill C-11, Google ended up paying $100 million just so that they could stay on the air. They've divvied up that money to different organizations. And this was them trying to talk about, like, what is it that your goal is here? Is it money? Is it broadcasting? What's the end goal here?
I will ask you this. How much money is it going to take from the government at the end of the day to make this successful? To make your organization carry out what Canadians want? How much money?
That's a very big question to ask and involves a lot of speculation.
Give us a number. Give us a number.
I don't have such a number. It's not there. And quite frankly, money isn't the only solution. That's why we are looking at a whole bunch of different things. You know, we've spoken often enough about conditions of license to ensure that, you know, those who do have licenses in those markets are producing local news, are investing in it also. Those are two different types of conditions of license we have in place with them. There's the Google money that's flowing. We have created new funds to help support businesses that produce news, and very precise, that support is dependent upon how many reporters you hire and are on staff on that front. So that is directly, it's going to news. It's the people finding the news. So it has been quite important, and support from our end on that
So
front.
who follows up, Scott? Who follows up when the CTV network decides not to have local news on Sunday and Monday? Does the CRTC used to get a 7-year contract for a license? Mm-hmm. Is there any licenses anymore? Because I'm sure CTV did not have that in their license. Radio-wise, I can tell you here's what's happening. I can do the morning show in Saskatoon from 6 to 9. Then I go off the air and I'm doing the mid-morning in Calgary. You knew this. This is what owners are doing to shave money, to stay alive in this country. So a number of so-called disc jockeys or morning shows, they'll do them, then they turn around. We're in Edmonton now. It's quarter to the hour. I don't know what hour it is, but I have the mid-morning show from 9 to noon. So I don't see the CRTC following up with certain broadcasters in this country about what I just talked about, local news and radio stations that are doing programming like I just mentioned. And that was years ago. We were all scared of the CRTC. Now, nobody gives a damn about you guys. I'm going to be honest, because you don't follow up.
Now, I got to say, I do appreciate his passion, but unfortunately, I do have a bit of a worry, or I'm a little bit concerned about the CRTC and their powers, because, again, they were trying to go after independent content creators. They wanted to ball them up under all of this provisions from the Streamers Act, and right now we are carved out, but it's not to say that they can't look at it again, or the Liberals might not just want to add us in, and then I need to be providing certain Canadian content, even though the whole channel is Canadian content, that satisfies their rules, right? again, all of these provisions and everything that they're doing is for more and more control over you and what you get to do in your life. And people need to start waking up. Like, this isn't how we should be running things. We need to have more freedoms, not less. We need smaller government, not big. And they need to get their hands out of all of these cookie jars, because it's going to get to a point where we might not even be able to vote these things out, just like they did with the supply management, where they solidified it, and now that's no longer on the bargaining table, which we're probably going to get into in another video. But with all this being said, let me know what you guys think about this video, the topics at hand. Again, if you missed Monday's video, I'd suggest you go check that out. I'll leave it somewhere here on the channel. If you can, like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.